Today on 100 Huntley Street, we explore how the light shining through your life can push away gray darkness. And we take you to Ukraine to hear one woman's resilient journey through the war. It's all coming up right now.
Welcome to 100 Huntley Street, and this is a day where we are actually investigating a very spicy rumor.
A spicy rumor. What rumor is that, Cheryl?
Well, that it is time to break out the pumpkin spice lattes because autumn is on Sunday, and this is Keurig pumpkin spice lattes.
That's right. It is
What
time.
a great idea.
And we can do it at home and save some money. So,
Right.
you know, that doesn't, you just froth up some milk right even on your stove. I mean, I'm really giving you some good tips
You
here.
are.
And then you could sit out and you could look at the leaves falling out your window. Now, I've got a little quiz for you here, a little moment. Okay. So why do they call this season fall? It's really obvious.
Did you
Cheryl.
fall in love with the season?
So sweet.
Okay, I know.
good.
The leaves are falling. Is that why,
Yes,
really?
Of course. Yes, it is.
Wow.
It is why. It's really obvious, and I love it. I love when something's obvious, but we can't quite figure it out. It's cool.
Well, it's like you wouldn't think that, but
That's
you know,
right.
the word autumn is actually, so not fall, but autumn is actually connected with harvest. So you think about this time of year, you know, you're picking up corn, potatoes, onions, apples. So many good things are coming to life in the fall.
Yes, good for us. And, you know, you can take the whole family out to go apple picking, visit a fall farm to buy pumpkins. I love to do that with Jake, Ben, and Jeff. And I still get them out there, even though they're in the teenage years. We go through the corn mazes,
awesome.
and I like to have a lot of fun. I just, you know, this is a beautiful time of year. It's not too hot, not too cold. I don't know how Cheryl feels about that. She loves the summer. So.
Well, I do love summer. I would love fall if it wasn't leading into winter because I think it is a beautiful season. And
Yeah.
if you like to get out and enjoy it, you can also roast pumpkin seeds for a healthy treat. You do that with your kids
Really
or
good.
grandkids, making caramel apples. Someone even said building a scarecrow, and I was like, on your front lawn, a scarecrow. I mean, if you live in the city, it might be a little odd, but would you do it?
I would. Well, sure. I mean, I do anything, Cheryl, with my kids. I'm really funny.
Love that.
I also heard about someone suggesting a Friendsgiving. So have friends over who don't necessarily have a place to go, and you can have a Thanksgiving potluck meal together. I love this idea. Like,
Yes.
love it, love it,
I
love
had
it.
friends doing that one year when I couldn't see my family, and they included me in their celebration. It actually really meant a lot to me. I still remember it. It's probably like 20 years ago, but it was a beautiful idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's a great time to volunteer at a kitchen, maybe a soup kitchen or an outreach that helps with those, you know, who are struggling with being unhoused in this colder season, those who are living on the margins. And if you have kids or grandkids, you know, bringing them along, especially if your local church does an outreach or the church you attend, just go and take part and be the hands and feet of Jesus.
All right, so that is a lot of ideas for you.
Yeah.
There's no excuse now to be stuck indoors. You know, you have to get out and enjoy the fall before that white stuff that I don't love comes. Okay,
Yeah.
so, all right. Well, now Robbie Simons is standing by. He has some insight for us on how much we need the help that comes only from above.
I pray that you have been encouraged this week. I pray you've been with us too. If not, go back, catch up. Massively important principles of truth on abiding, what it means, and why it is absolutely essential if we want to have any chance of bearing fruit for Jesus Christ in our lives. I've stressed it many times this week. I'll just say it at least one more time. This is one of the most important principles in the entire New Testament. It doesn't come more important than this, because if we fail to believe in this and act upon it, then we just can't bear fruit for Jesus Christ. It is that simple. You say, why do you say that? Because Jesus says it. He says it over and over again. Let's recap where we've been this week and where we're going today as well. Why must I abide? Because Jesus alone is the source of all life and spiritual life, again, within us. Jesus is the only way I can bear fruit. He's the only way. You will not bear fruit through your sports team. You will not bear fruit because you hang out with some friends. You will bear fruit for Christ through Jesus Christ. And then today, I love this, because apart from Jesus, I got nothing. I got nothing. Say, where do you get that from? Jesus. John 15:5. Jesus says this, again, I am the vine, you are the branches. He is the source, right? Whoever abides in me, remains in me, again, resides in me, he it is that bears much fruit. And then he says this, for apart from me, you can do nothing. Last time I checked, nothing meant nothing, right? Jesus says, spiritually speaking, apart from him, nothing will happen if we do not abide in him, if we do not love him, spend time with him, pray to him, get in his word. Again, seek to use the gifts that he's given to us to praise him, to adore him. Jesus is everything. We must spend time with Jesus Christ if we're going to abide in him. Again, I love how clear Jesus is. Apart from me, you can do nothing. You know, a lot of people say, I wish Jesus was more clear. Well, he's very clear right now. I wish Jesus told me. He's telling us right now. He's telling us right now, if you don't abide in me, you can't bear fruit. If you don't abide in me, you won't bear fruit. Therefore, if you're not bearing fruit, you won't be blessed. You won't have joy. You won't have peace. You won't know his love. If you don't bear fruit for Christ and abide in him, these things will not happen. Maybe you're watching right now, and sometimes the way I get to say, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not experiencing what I think I should? How come I don't know joy and peace and the love of Christ in my life? Could it be because we're not abiding? Could it be that simple? We avoid him. He's there every day, but somehow we just continue to find other things to do. That's our answer. That's my answer. That's your answer today. Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Again, it's impossible to truly follow Christ apart from abiding in him. Non-negotiable, no exceptions, irrefutable truth right here that I'm teaching to you again in these segments this week. I pray it's so encouraging, convicting, but also motivating to say, Jesus, you are my top priority. So let me just cast some vision for all those who are listening and watching right now to listen. The first step in our lives is to abide. That's what Jesus says. Do you want to be a dad your children look up to? You start with abiding. Do you want to have a rockin', healthy marriage? You start with abiding. Do you want to have wisdom come from your life? Start with abiding. Do you want more love and forgiveness in your life? It starts with abiding. Do you want God to raise you up in leadership? It starts with abiding. Do you want to be a better friend? It starts with abiding. Do you want victory over sin? Not without abiding. Do you want to bear any and all fruit for Jesus Christ? You guessed it. It starts with abiding. Because apart from Jesus Christ, you can do nothing. So again, I love to be simple. I'm a simple guy. If you're going to do anything, you abide in Jesus Christ. That's where the blessing is. That's where the life is. And that's where the joy is. Prayer Center open. Call. Call right now. Give your life to Jesus Christ. He loves you and seeks you now. We're open and here for you and can't wait to see what your life looks like in fullness, again, of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
I'm so enjoying what Robbie had to say about abiding this week. And one thing I've noticed in life is that if you do something and you grow in experience or expertise, say you're a pastor, maybe you're a pastor's wife, you've done this a million times, you kind of know what you're doing, anything really, we begin to rely on our expertise and our experience, and there's nothing wrong with that, except for what Robbie is saying. We are missing out on the resources of heaven. So what would be possible if it wasn't just, the great ideas I have or the study I've done or the experience I've gained, but I'm actually asking God and abiding in him and saying, I need your resources to do this. I need your ideas. I need your connection with people. There might be something that you just start randomly talking about, and this does happen to me, that just happens to be something that someone needs to hear. You just don't know what you're missing out on. And, it makes me reflect on what more could there be? What more miracles, what more inspiration, what more evidence of God moving in our life could there be if we were actually accessing those resources, depending on him, abiding in him, talking to him. There's a million ways to do that throughout your day, even just talking to him throughout the day and saying, I love you, I recognize you, I need you. That can change everything. And all you have to do is say a prayer right now. If that's you, if you're like, yeah, I've done that, I've done it, so I know. Just say, Lord, I'm sorry for doing it. I'm sorry for not depending on you. Will you come right now and empower me? I need your help today. Show up in big ways. And then just see what happens. And if you want someone to pray for you, our prayer lines are there. Please give them a call, 1-866-273-4444. You can send a quick email at prayer@crossroads.ca. We just want to keep journeying with you through your spiritual journey. And all of us, including the hosts here and everybody that works here, we want to keep drawing closer to God so the resources of heaven are changing our nation and our world. Now let's go over to Laura and music legend Babby Mason.
Joining me now is Babby Mason, Grammy-nominated musician, television host, Bible teacher, and author of the new book, Each One Reach One, Everyday Ways You Can Shine God's Light. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street, Babby.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's been our honor to have you this month, and we're so thrilled with what you're telling us about how we can shine the light of Jesus through our everyday encounters and moments with people we meet and with our loved ones. You know, sometimes as followers of Jesus, we can think that someone else is going to evangelize or share the message of Jesus with the people around us, but really it's something every follower of Jesus is tasked with doing.
Absolutely.
And it's a joy, it's a privilege, and we just, you know, have to experience it enough to know how exciting the journey is. But what do we risk when we don't take up that call that God's asking us to do and share Jesus with the people around us?
Well, first of all, we're missing an opportunity. We're missing an opportunity to share our faith and possibly, hopefully, lead someone to Jesus. So what we're doing when you share your faith, think about the eternal impact. You're populating heaven. And this is what I so look forward to, is that one day I'm going to stand before God. You know, there's a beautiful quote when I stand, and I've kind of adopted it as kind of a mantra for me. When I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have any gifts left, but I could say to God, I used everything you gave me. Oh. And that is my prayer, that when I get to heaven, I will see people who've been impacted by my music or my words. And here's the beautiful thing is everybody in my neighborhood doesn't know that I'm a Christian singer. I just happen to be their neighbor or maybe even a stranger. And so everybody may not know you as a person. And so what you're doing is when you're sharing the gospel, you're putting Jesus on display. I say it like this, you're making God look good. That's what I equate to say giving him glory. And people are observing your words, your conversation, your behavior. And isn't that what you want when you want to give God glory with your life? And so, first of all, you're being obedient to the scriptures. You're populating heaven. And then last of all, this is a way to give God glory. Mm. This is a way to make Jesus look good. People are taking notes on us. I mean, when you're in the grocery store and you're shopping for an avocado and you're kind, or you prefer someone over yourself, or you open the door for someone, or you speak a kind word, we are shining our light, and the world is getting darker. I don't have to tell you, the world is getting darker and darker all the time. But this is a beautiful thing. Against all that darkness, when you shine your light, it penetrates the darkness. I fly a lot, and I fly a lot at night, and I can look down over a city, and I can see beautiful lights shining against the darkness. Even one light on somebody's back porch, I can see it from 30,000 feet above the ground. And that is the power of one little light. So don't think that your light doesn't mean much. Your light is penetrating darker. And if you shine your light and I shine my light, then that is much more light that will be penetrated against the darkness. And that's why I named the book Each One Reach One. It's a song that I wrote in the 90s. And I used that song and Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 as the theme of this book to remind us that it doesn't take much to penetrate darkness. So if you shine your light and I shine my light, then together we can make God look good.
That sounds like a good deal with incredible heavenly results.
Yes.
Fabi, thank you so much for that word of encouragement and for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, if you're ready to let your light shine for Jesus, then this incredible book, Each One Reach One by Babi Mason, is the book that you need to have. There are Bible studies in this book, incredible true life stories of God moving in mighty ways through everyday encounters. There are video resources through a QR code, Bible teachings, and testimonies, worship songs, all connected to this incredible book. We want to get this into your hands so you can share Jesus with the people you love and the people you encounter. To get a copy of your book, take a look at this.
Do you ever feel hesitant when it comes to sharing your faith? This month, Crossroads wants to help you talk about your beliefs with confidence and joy. We're pleased to offer the book, Each One Reach One, Everyday Ways You Can Shine God's Light by award-winning artist Babi Mason.
Don't worry about how it comes out. There's something about kindness that tears down walls. It makes a person's heart vulnerable, and they are looking for a lifeline.
This inspiring, interactive book is perfect for those longing to share their God story with others. Find your unique style of talking about Jesus and share your faith with excitement.
And when they're looking for a lifeline, I give them a lifeline. When they express their need, I share my faith.
Request this ministry offer with a donation of $40 or more, or when you become a new monthly partner. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/shine.
When war came to Ukraine in February of 2022, Iryna Kapitonova and her family had a difficult decision to make. Do they stay or do they run? They decided to stay, and her storytelling of the devastation that followed has impacted countless lives. She joins me now from Ukraine. Iryna, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.
Now, you were a young mom, married mom of a 7-year-old. You had, friends and family, people you knew in the West. You could have run. Why did you decide to stay in Ukraine?
Well, we did get out of Kyiv. We moved to a safer part of Ukraine. But when we prayed, when we were trying to understand what God would want us to do, we never felt like moving to another country was His will. We knew it would probably make our lives safer, but we knew that our hearts would stay in Ukraine. We knew that our families are here and our home is here. So I think leaving your home is the hardest decision anyone ever makes. That's why for us, it was easier to stay than go.
I think you and your family embody the spirit of the Ukrainian people that we have all admired, that love for Ukraine, that ability and desire to fight for your homeland, to fight for Ukraine to still exist as it is. And, you processed a lot of what was happening in the war through journaling, which you posted on social media. And those were such powerful posts. You actually put the first year of your journaling into a book called Tulips and Ashes. Tell me a little bit about that book.
Yes, this book is a miracle. It's something that I never planned. But since I've been posting regularly about our life in Ukraine, I had my friends who are missionaries in Berlin now, who offered to put my story into a book. And Tulips and Ashes, that was the title that came as a result of a picture that we had from the first days of the invasion. It was a picture from Mariupol, a city that was pretty much destroyed by Russia. And it was a picture of tulips growing in front of a burned down building. And for me, that was the image I wanted to share with the world. I wanted the world to know that even though it's horrible, even though it's bad, but there is a lot of beauty, there is a lot of hope, and God is with us even when it looks hopeless.
I think that really comes through your journaling. There's so many beautiful moments and thoughts that you have there. One of the things, you're a very spiritual person. You have a deep faith and relationship with Jesus. How did you process, that you were all praying for miracles? You were praying for an end to this war. You were praying for God to intervene, and it hasn't yet happened in the way of ending the war. How did you spiritually process that?
One of the questions I often wonder is, how do people survive without God? How people survive in these circumstances? Because I remember the first 2 weeks of this invasion, of the full-scale invasion, it feels as if the only thing I could do was pray or listen to worship songs, because it was just too much to handle. And a lot of times I would just turn to Psalms because I felt like I don't have words to express what's going on in my heart. So I don't know if it is possible to do it without God. But at the same time, in those first weeks, as I was praying, God gave me the verse from Zechariah 4:6. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. And that verse was so powerful for me. And I had 2 or 3 people who sent me a message with the same verse that God gave them around the same time. So that's the verse that I hold on to, especially when things get hard, especially when things look hopeless, when you start wondering why. And you remember that if God promised to do it by His Spirit, it's not about our military strength, and it's not just about us surviving, but I believe that God is doing greater things in Ukraine and through Ukraine right now.
I think one of the things I really appreciate about this book is, we talk a lot in the faith community about how shifting your perspective can change everything. So if you're looking for horror, you will find horror. If you're looking for beauty, you will find beauty. And even though, obviously you've been grieving over this time of every terrible thing that's happened, you also were always looking for miracles. Tell me a little bit about that and the miracles you found.
Mm-hmm. Well, it feels like, and I often say that God was so gracious to us to give us those miracles, especially in the first days of the war, when you could see nature rising up to our defense. For example, there was a story of wild geese that downed a Russian plane that was going to bomb a village. They just flew into the motor of the plane and it crashed. There was a story of people who returned home after the territory was deoccupied, and they had beehives on their in their backyard, and they went to check on the beehives, and it turned out that a beehive was mined, but the bees covered the mine with wax, so the bomb did not explode. There was a story of wild animals falling into the traps set up by Russians and protecting our soldiers just as they were going to come to that position. There were stories our military shared when they would get a sudden urge to change a position, and their position would be bombed just minutes after they moved. There are stories of people who survived, military who survived the shelling, and even though they were injured, days after, they found rather big fragments of shell stuck in their backpack or stuck in their belt, and that it was just, I don't know, inches away from making it really bad for them. And it's incredible when you hear these stories, and I really wanted to write them down because it's a great reminder for us. And even after the book was, or as we were getting ready to publish the book, as I was reading through these stories, some of them I've already forgotten. And so it was a great reminder and a great encouragement for me to know that God was with us in those worst first weeks when we did not know if Ukraine will stand or it will fall. But God was with us then. He was faithful. He has been faithful throughout this whole time. So there's no reason for us to doubt him now.
That is so good. I mean, yes, the war hasn't ended 2.5 years in, but nobody thought Ukraine would still be standing 2.5 years in. So that's a miracle in itself. Now, one of the quotes I really loved about you, and this is really about, your fight not to be numb to the horrors of war, your fight not to be bitter. But you said, I realized I couldn't allow myself to be that way. Speaking of bitterness, I didn't want Russian children to play the hiding in a bomb shelter game like my son and niece did today. I don't want Russian mothers to wake up in terror during a thunderstorm thinking it was an explosion. I can't wish for someone to experience the horrors my nation is experiencing now, especially in the occupied territories. When you think about war and there is an enemy invading and terrorizing your people, how have you, as a Christian, processed, the anger, the rage, even the hatred, that is a natural part of seeing atrocities committed to someone? How have you done that?
Well, for me, Psalms are a great answer. David was honest with God. He would yell at God, he would cry at God's feet, and he would share his heart with God. So, yes, we do get angry, we do get bitter, but, knowing that you don't need to handle all of this yourself, knowing that there is God who is great enough to handle all of this pain and to bring comfort and to bring healing. This is what gives me strength. But also, I believe that this war, it's not just about the war between two countries. I know that this war is much greater, and it is the war, the spiritual battle that's been going on for ages. And if we give in to bitterness, if we give in to hatred, we will lose. The enemy would win, and the enemy, even if Ukraine stands, but our hearts turn bitter, this will not be victory. That's why it's so important for me to try to remain sensitive, and to try to remain compassionate, and I don't know, just trying to keep my heart honest before God. And it's not always easy. And I know that, like I said, Psalms and books of prophets, they are usually the parts of the Bible that I turn to now, because they tell about God who is a God of justice, a God who is on the side of the oppressed, God who will bring justice, God who will restore it, God who will, wipe the tears of those who weep. He will heal those who are wounded. He is the one who will bring glory to his name. And that's what gives me hope. And even when I don't understand the circumstances, even when nothing makes sense, I can trust that God knows why this is going on, and in his sovereign will, he will do what is best.
I think your faith is absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed reading that book. I would recommend that everybody gets a copy of Tulips and Ashes. It's just such a beautiful, honest, just like the Psalms, reflection of what it's like to go through this war. And I think keeping it before all of us, as well as the war drags on, that we have to keep praying for Ukraine. We have to keep helping. We have to stand against injustice and stand with people to let them know that God sees them. And for you, Iryna, God sees you. He's not forgotten you, and your voice matters. And I want you to know that. And I thank you for just continuing to raise awareness and speak for your people and look for God in the midst of this horror. And we pray that there'll be a day that we can speak again when we can say the war is over.
Thank you.
Tune in to 100 Huntley Street all week long as we spotlight the worship music project, Royal Anthems. 22 Canadian worship leaders unite to create powerful songs for churches all across the nation. Don't miss this inspiring week.
Cheryl, your conversation with Iryna, it was so riveting, but I think what was so interesting was her calmness, her steadiness, the sense of peace you could see emanating from her as she's talking about living in such a traumatic existence, actually, but the fact that she's rooted in who God is and rooted in the miracles he's showing her and rooted in his presence as he journeys with her through this war and with so many people in Ukraine. You know, and I think about this sometimes, literally when I think about Ukraine war, as we come up on the 3rd year anniversary, I will think about, what would I be responding like if my home was being bombed, if I could hear bombs going off, if I was with my children in my backyard and I didn't know what that sound was, where was it coming from, and how I could run or how fast. And I think that's why it's so important that we continue to pray for those who are in Ukraine, pray for people like Iryna, and to have these voices that make a difference as we try to understand and even grapple with what they're dealing with.
Yeah, and I think too, going deep in your relationship with God is the thing that prepares you to have the kind of faith that Iryna has in the midst of war. I'm sure it's grown in this time, but if you don't actually have some kind of trust in God, some kind of knowledge that he's good, some kind of knowledge that he loves you, how in the world are you going to face it when your own world is blown apart, whether that's through a global event or something personally? Yeah. If you haven't made a decision for Christ, now would be a great day to do it. I mean, this might be exactly what you need for what you're about to face or what you're currently facing. Give our prayer lines a call right now. We will pray for you. We'll tell you all about it. 1-866-273-4444. You can even just cry out to God and say, fill me. I need you today. See what happens.
Oh, we're so excited to have the weekend upon us. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a supporter-funded nonprofit organization and member of the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities. Thanks to faithful people like you, we are able to continue producing 100 Huntley Street. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R4M2, or visit crossroads.ca to learn more about our programs.